Thank you for having me. All right, let me get to the right window. So in the next half hour, 40 minutes, this is what I will take you through. So we'll get to know each other a little bit, maybe slightly more difficult than if we were in person, but like, let's just pretend. It'll be great. We'll talk about what I said I was going to talk about. So hopefully those promises will be fulfilled by the end of the talk. A few fundamentals on SOAR. What is it? Why should you bother? I do have a crazy theory, even at this time on a Monday. When you should automate updating your LinkedIn profile, that could be a thing. And everyone loves measurements. And then we'll have questions at the end. That'll be great. All right, everyone's sitting comfortably. Let's go. So quick, who's Sam? So I've been at Exabeam. This slide has not been updated. My job title is now security strategist. I've been there for just over a year, but I've been doing security since the beginning of time. So I worked in support for a while. I've definitely done incident response for enough years to make me age terribly. My job title was not Chief Apology Officer, strangely enough, but I did spend quite a lot of time saying sorry to people for things that were nothing to do with me. But it's good to have a full guy, I think. I've done product management. I've done product marketing. I really like the cloud. Nephafile means that you like the cloud, nothing strange or illegal. Should you require a DJ at any point, I am available for weddings, bar mitzvahs, deaf garden parties, you name it. If you want some terrible music, I am right there. And if you'd love to chat about old school malware, I can talk config and sanity over beer quite happily. I write, I talk too much, I dance around in front of PowerPoint slides, and if you'd like to come say hi on Twitter, you can find me at SafeSex with a CS at the end. Okay, let's pretend that I can see you. If you could just say your name, what you do, tell me about yourself a little bit. Cool, nice to meet you. That was great, thank you. Okay, what are we going to talk about today? Well, what are we not going to talk about? These things all come up if you Google SOAR, maybe if you can't spell. I have no idea why that came up, and this is a complete mystery, but these things all were available through the awesome power of Google, and other search engines are available. Here's what we are going to talk about. So what is SOAR, how it can help you, how you can think about approaching SOAR, what you should automate, what you shouldn't automate, and then how to measure SOAR success. I do work for a company that sells a SOAR product. We're not going to talk about it. You're not going to see it. If you want to talk about it, go to exabeam.com. There's loads of stuff on there. This is more really thinking about SOAR as a process and the ways of doing it. So let's talk about what SOAR is. So SOAR stands for Security, Orchestration, Automation, and Response. I imagine, given the DevSec part of the conference name, automation isn't exactly new in dev. It's not really that new to security either. It's been around a while. And there are loads of lovely ways of automating things. I have my hilarious automated out of office. But automating tasks really is because computers. That said, in security, we often are still doing things manually, which is just a bit weird sometimes, I think, but there can be lots of reasons for that. Trust can be a challenge. If computers are going to screw things up, they'll do it quickly. That's something I've said sorry for a lot. So getting this right and understanding kind of where to start, not trying to literally boil the ocean or indeed automate the ocean is a good thing. So there are some good candidates and some things that are maybe best left for humans, it turns out. So I love your friends at Gartner. This is how Gartner explains SOAR. So I'll give you a second to read this fantastic description. But ultimately, it's about bringing the pieces together within your tool set, getting rid of that low-hanging fruit, and then understanding where humans fit into that automation process, because it's not a good idea to go and automate everything you do in security operations from start to finish, because things will and can go wrong. When people think about SOAR, there's kind of two real areas that kind of come up when we're talking to organizations. This is kind of the first thing. People talk about playbooks and then having some workflows. Now, you can have playbooks and workflows without touching SOAR whatsoever. They can be completely human operated. But generally, these things take time. and time is not your friend in security operations. So hopefully you kind of got a bit of what SOAR is. So you've got automating kind of the things that happen, and then orchestrating by bringing different tools together to perform some of those tasks. And that's great, right? But so what? Should you bother is the first question, I think. Computers can do things very quickly. And if you haven't set things up properly, they'll do what you told them to do. And that can be bad. Or, it might not work. So it may not be that they cause a huge issue, but then we might have just something that's broken and not performing well. And if you're expecting it to happen and it doesn't, that can have a whole host of knock-on effects. There is definitely concern if we do loads of automation, does that mean we'll actually have a job at the end of it? Especially if you are, say, working in a security operations center, just getting started in a tier 1 kind of function, does that mean my job's going away? And that's a real concern, right? And if you're kind of hiring people or, you're in a leadership position somewhere, does that mean then that people become more expensive? Do you only need seasoned analysts? And we can talk skills gap all day long, but certainly there are fewer seasoned analysts than there are junior analysts coming through. What happens to my junior people? How would I attract new talent? Do I have to just go for these people who've been doing it for years and years and years and years? What happens to the folks coming up from university that are smart and keen and know all this new stuff? What do we do with those guys? And then really it just becomes a bit too much, right? So we can just sort of automate anything. So where do I start? And then it just, should we just not bother? Thank you very much. That's been my talk. No, we should bother. Let's talk about why. So these are some good questions to start with as you're approaching some sort of SOAR process and thinking about what to automate within security operations. So you might have folks currently who are super skilled, but they're not spending time on tasks that are kind of worthy of their skill set, especially if they're doing a lot of manual processes. If you don't necessarily have a tiered system where you've got different people on different tasks with an escalation process, you might have folks who are loads of experience and they're still spending time doing a lot of manual querying, lots of manual investigations, running malware, and it's all stuff that takes time. Manual is generally bad when you're up against a clock. Alerts are definitely a challenge. SIMs are brilliant. Kind of security products have been sending alerts in security products. It's very easy to get a lot of stuff coming in from all over the place without having real context and knowing what to do first. Security technology does create false positives. I refer you back to my chief apology officer imaginary role title that I had. So, if you're using software that's looking for bad stuff, sometimes it gets it wrong. And we did some research a little while ago that security operations teams are telling us that they are spending around about 25% of their time just on false positives. And that's a lot of time. And if you want to go work in security, you want to do some cool stuff, chasing ghosts is not cool. Chasing ghosts is boring and demoralizing. And ultimately, it's stuff that really, you could be doing something more interesting. Is there a bunch of work we aren't getting to? I think that's a fairly obvious one. I don't know anyone who works in SecOps who thinks, wow, I really don't have anything to do today. Maybe I should go and find something. It's busy, right? Training can be a real challenge as well. Again, more research. We've actually got some research coming out. I can't talk about yet, but this is something that comes up repeatedly in security. It seems we work in an industry where it's a given that you spend your own time learning, and it's less likely you're going to get learning time within the office, especially if you work in an operational role. Where you are literally churning through stuff all day long. Taking time out to do formal training can be really painful. So, again, if it's you working in a security operations role, if you're a manager of that sort of team, if you're a leader in security, really do think about how often are you training people? Or is it you think, oh yeah, they can go to conferences on weekends or in the evening or those kind of things. They can learn in their own time. And again, that's not necessarily a great commitment to your folks, but it's hard to do if you are working in a busy operations team. And then a slightly random number, but if you were around on the break, you will have seen Trend Micro as one of the sponsors. My lovely friend Rick Ferguson over at Trend, I caught one of his talks last year, and he was saying that they'd done some number crunching. And if you had about 100,000 alerts coming in every day, which is kind of standard for like a large bank type SOC. So not all of our security operations centers may be like that, but to handle that level of alerts coming through, you need 217 analysts. And I can probably count on a hand how many, without the outsourced MSPs, how many actual in-house security operations teams have 217 analysts, or even 215 or 216. Generally, it's a much smaller operation. So if you can answer these questions, chances are you've got a requirement for security automation, orchestration, and response. Okay, so here's really why you should bother them. There are a load of good reasons for doing this. Operational efficiency is cool. Accuracy is cool. Take that with a caveat first, though. Hang on 1 second, I need to cough. I don't want to do that in your ear. That's cool. There we go. All right. So yes, efficiency and accuracy, we like those things. Reducing risk and security, you'd think would be a given, but with manual tasks comes risk, especially if you're doing the same thing over and over again. I used to work in a team at a large vendor who has the original founder doesn't work there anymore, and his surname is the name of the company. So I'll leave that with you as to where you think that is. One of the processes that we had that was a very daily event took 1,000 mouse clicks from humans. And if you're doing 1,000 mouse clicks every day, it's very possible that you may think you've done that mouse click today, and actually you haven't, because you've done it every day previously. It's a big benefit behind SOAR is where you're getting rid of those manual tasks. You're getting rid of that human ability to also go, well, I think I did it. Maybe, be all right. You can also get more value from the security stack. Linking security tools together is a good thing, generally, as long as they talk to each other properly. But being able to use them as kind of part of the whole, rather than just having them sat there as individual islands, you get more value. And really what this all boils down to is eliminating wasted time. And time is probably the most valuable commodity in security operations, apart from you, obviously. John McAfee, nice to see you. So here's my mad theory, and having John McAfee wrapped in tinfoil is possibly related to something being slightly madcap. I see having this in place as an HR benefit. And some of the reasons on one of the previous slides around things like training and interesting work are why that is. Not having enough interesting work to do is in the top reasons for employees leaving a company in security. And it seems obvious, right? We're people who want to do smart stuff. We want people to get into security for a whole host of reasons. But, when things are really hotting up, you think you've got something potentially bad going on, or you're doing proactive work and you're finding things before they become a problem. That's kind of the cool stuff. Sitting there churning through phishing emails, trying to work out if a link's good or bad, that can be soul destroying. So there is without doubt an HR benefit to doing this. And also, as well as it being better for your people from a doing more interesting work point of view, there's also the benefit of burnout is a real thing in security, right? And if people are doing manual work and wasting time, burnout can be very, very easy. So lots of good reasons beyond, we've got computers and they should help us. So some research from Exabeam, the new version of this is about to come out. So I can't give you the new numbers yet, but stay tuned. It's this week. But some of these things won't be that surprising. Most security operations teams have some challenge around staffing. 38% called out that they were understaffed last year. And of the analysts that we spoke to, 42% said challenging work is a reason that they stay. That's pretty high, right? On the leadership end of the scale, certainly at the C-suite, people are concerned about staff inexperience. And if you happen to be in America and you're still awake at this time, great. Sunday night, good for you. Enjoy that Monday morning experience. But trainings still aren't as regular. Certainly where I am here in the UK, to have even quarterly training is pretty unlikely. So again, it's expected that we learn in our own time as opposed to getting training relevant to our job during the hours that we're being paid. So some third-party research, in case you think I've made it up because Exabeam. So again, training has become an issue. This is a great report. It's quite long. I see there must be a way that we can get this across to you, or you can quickly scroll down that URL. But the life and times of cybersecurity professionals goes into a lot of detail on a lot of subjects. But some of the interesting bullet points related to this, training, the right level of training is not being provided by the employer. They're having to do stuff in their own time. More than that, people don't have enough time to do any training anyway, if it was available. And as far as the thought process on security automation, pretty much everybody, I mean, not the 22%, we like the 78%, they're our friends.